welcome to the next of the 67 steps here. Now, these are principles, these are guidelines, and today we're talking about one that's about the cognitive biases of your brain. Charlie Munger says that there are 25, there's probably more, but he listed the 25 main ones that cause you to make mistakes. And one of the habits that we want to train out of our brain over these 66 or 67 days that we're together in this program is us getting rid of those things that make us do stupid stuff. I was watching a movie yesterday. I went to the Sundance Theater, which is down the street. I watched I'm not sure if I'd recommend it to you. It's called Force Majeure. It's a Swedish movie, subtitled. And it's about a story of it's kind of a comedy. It's not that intense, but there's an avalanche at one point, and I won't give away what happens, but the dad does something that he regrets, and the wife is mad. And at one point, he says to himself, he admits to his wife, I hate myself that I don't have enough courage. I hate that I've done things, that I regret now, and I didn't have the courage and the character. And it just reminded me of what we're going to talk about in these cognitive biases. If you've ever been mad at yourself, you're like, I knew better. I knew I shouldn't go in business with that person, or I knew I shouldn't date that person, or I knew that, I should be more patient on this, or I knew I shouldn't have bought that. I should have saved my money. I think we've all had that. I've certainly had that. And if you break yourself down, what are the criteria that I followed that made me make that stupid decision? You will find and end up with about 25 of these cognitive biases. And the one I want to talk about today, that's very important, maybe one of the most important, if not the most important of these 25, is something called misweighting. So today's lesson, or step, I should say, is called donuts, a $250,000 check, and General Eisenhower. The tendency to misweight. Now, why do I give it that crazy title? Well, long ago, when I started not too long ago, when I started one of my companies, I hired an assistant. I won't say her name because I have different assistants. Don't want to embarrass her. But when she was first starting out, I remember there was something very important. One of my business partners wanted donuts. And we also had a customer. This was a wealth management company. We managed the stock and investment for people. And we needed to get a $250,000 check from a customer, but they couldn't come into the office, so we were going to send somebody to go pick up the check. So we told this assistant, we'll call her Susie. That's not her real name. So we said, hey, Susie, here's the things we need you to do today. Can you stop and get some donuts? And can you get this $250,000 check from this customer? And that's all we said. We were real busy. Me and John Dewar, my business partner, and we're working, and that was in the morning. Then like 2 or 3 o'clock, Susie was walking by, and I was like, hey, Susie, how are things going? Now, I expected her to give me the $250,000 check that she had gone to the client's office or house and picked it up. But she's like, oh, I got the donuts. And I said, well, what about the check? And she said, well, oh yeah, I'm going to do that a little bit later. I said, but he might not be home if you go too late. And she's like, oh yeah, well maybe I'll have to get it tomorrow. And I'll never forget that I was incredulous. I'm like, what is going on? So we took her to the conference room, we had a little training session. Brought all the staff in, and I'm like, you can't have donut prioritization. It's not about, because she said, well, but you asked me to get donuts. And she was right. But my mom used to say something, I don't know if she made it up or heard it. You can get anything you want in life, but you can't get everything. Think about that for a second. You can get anything that you want in life, but you can't get everything. And you certainly can't get everything at once. So that leads us to the most important skill, or one of the top skills you must possess, and that is the ability to geniusly prioritize your life. How good are you at prioritizing? Think about today. What are those things that will make your life amazing? Well, being healthy. So did you prioritize working out first thing? I was reading about The Rock, the bodybuilder, the movie star. His life, he wakes up at 4 in the morning. He does cardio from 4 to, I don't know, 4:30 or 4:45. Then he works out weights. Then he eats breakfast, and then he works out weights. So by the time it's 6:30 or 7 o'clock, he's already worked out and lifted weights. And then he could spend the day doing his business, shooting a movie. Now, you and I aren't necessarily people that need to be pro bodybuilder level, but if he's doing it 2 hours a day, we could do it 10 minutes a day. First things first. Joel Salatin used to tell me that. First things first. The problem that you will run into, and we've talked about this before, is media bias. Everybody's trying to sell you on their agenda, and it's not just the media, it's not just TV, it's other people. They're going to push you to do things that are in their best interest. You know, if you look at game theory, Nash, if you've seen the movie A Beautiful Mind or read history and know he won a Nobel Prize for game theory. How do you react when somebody does something? Do you say yes? Do you say no? The consequences of saying no, right? Or maybe you make them mad and so on. So life and our brains are generally decent at game theory. You know, for example, that when you go somewhere, let's say you're in a restaurant and you bump somebody, the person bumped has the choice to turn around and punch you. But they play the game out in their mind. If they punch you and you accidentally had bumped into them, they may face the hostility of the other people there going, what kind of idiot just gets lightly bumped on a chair and turns around and punches somebody? And then they know, so they play the game in their mind. If I overreact, the whole crowd might come and either hit me back or, you know, censor me, ostracize me, or they might call the police and I might end up. So you do the math in your head. Now, if you're sitting there and someone comes and jumps on you viciously and punches you, your game of your brain may play out the game theory that it's okay then to punch them back. You know, this is a good book I would just happen to have here, this social book, Buss's book. There's many books on game theory. So that is an example of prioritization. It's a similarity. It's an if and. Okay? So in your life, if you're not careful, you know what the priorities are. You got to be healthy. You have to make money to provide for yourself. You have to have love and friendships and family and romance, and you got to put enough time in that those relationships become stronger and stronger. You have to have some time for yourself to find fulfillment and happiness and intangibles and charity and altruism and a little art and a little music. All this comprises your life. And, you know, as Einstein says, you should make things simpler, but not simpler than they can be. Things should be simple, but you can't oversimplify. So life is not that simple, yet it's very simple. That sounds ironic, that sounds contradictory, but it isn't. Think about it. It's pretty simple. You got to stay healthy. You got to make some wealth. You got to find love, and you got to keep yourself happy. Those are 4 simple things. But the path to achieve them is fraught with landmines and other people's best interests and being pulled away. And so I don't want you to have donut prioritization. And the reason that Susie, the assistant, had donut is because it was easier. So one of the great things, I think Gary Keller talks about it in the book, The One Thing, is that it's very important that you do the first things first in the day. Even scientifically, we know that your brain runs out of willpower, right? It's like literally a chemical store of energy that you have in your brain, and it can get depleted and it gets recharged, you know, as you sleep and wake up and it's a fresh new day. That's how we're built. So one thing I learned on a farm, whether it was the Amish or Joel Salatin or having my own farm, is, you know, knock out that hard stuff real early in the morning. There's a saying that the Amish have. I wish I had translated it. But it says, when you have something hard to do, jump into it, and the next thing you know, it's almost done. And so procrastination is, if you're writing this down, one of the big reasons we misprioritize, because oftentimes the most important things are a little bit harder. For Susie to have gone and got the check, she had to drive a little further. She had to ask for a $250,000 check. That might require some glycogen energy in her brain, take some sugar up, be a little bit difficult. She'd have to think ahead. And so the natural, easy path was just to go to buy donuts. That's a brainless thing. You go to the donut store, she was taking money that she was using the company card, handing them the company card. She didn't have to think. She could have had a headset on. She could have been doing nothing. So procrastination can come from many reasons. A lot of times from not doing your destiny. If you're feeling yourself procrastinating, you may be doing the wrong thing. But secondly, it can come from simply doing it at the wrong time when you don't have enough energy. So knock this stuff out as soon as possible. Whenever you have that hard thing, think of what the Amish say. When you have something hard to do, just jump into it. The next thing you know, it will be basically over, basically done. And time after time when I do that, I'm like, yes, it's amazing. The next thing to write down is you need a list somewhat. Don't go crazy with lists, because when the lists get too long, then you need a list to manage the list. But you need a running kind of tally of what needs to be done. And every day, and sometimes every hour, you must be willing to change it. One of the other cognitive biases that cause you to make mistakes is called the commitment consistency. So let's say for whatever reason you've put getting donuts as the highest priority and you've committed, I'm going to go get donuts. Don't be the person that can't go. That's no longer important. Now, getting the $250,000 check is more important. Dwight Eisenhower was one of the great presidents, or General Eisenhower before he was president. And one of the things he was the master of was organization, management. You know, you probably started this program with the book by Drucker, Managing Oneself. This, what we're talking about today, is part of management. The mistake in putting this above this is as bad as not doing it at all. Okay? So, as I said, this third point is don't commit and stay committed to something that is obviously no longer a priority. And that sounds like, of course, Tai, duh, that's obvious. It's not, it might be obvious, but it's not easy to do. It is not easy to do, first things first. I'm going to leave you. This today is a little bit of short but sweet, because I really want you to think on this. And the power from this is try it today. What were the 3 things you were going to do today, or 2 things? I want you to consciously, you can still do them. I want you to consciously just say this to yourself. Is this as important as I thought it was? And secondly, what's now more important? Get excited by change. Most people are scared of change. As Alexander the Great says, there's only 2 types of people in the world: those that conquer their fear and those that don't and suffer and die because of it. Your life will suffer if you're afraid to continually ask yourself, that was important to me, I don't know why it was, let me throw it out. Don't be afraid to do that. It's hard. You know, people ask me, how do I read a book a day? And they go, I'm stuck. I can't read a book a day. Well, yes, you can. I'm working on this book. You know, my speed reading techniques, my skimming techniques that you probably learned. If you haven't, I've got some videos on that. This book is pushing an agenda. It wants me to read, and this is a great book, by the way. I'm getting ready to do a book of the day on the visible history of the human race. But, you know, this book wants me to read from start to finish. But that's their agenda. So the next point to write down is do not be driven by other people's agenda unless it follows the law of physics. Is it a law of physics that I have to read this book from start to finish? No, that's a Jeff Bezos cool thing. He doesn't follow anything if it's not the law of physics. Like, you need to be afraid of jumping off a cliff because that's a law of physics that you can get in a lot of trouble when you hit the bottom at high speeds. So you're not following anybody's agenda unless it's a law of nature. Is it a law of nature that I have to read this book? No, in that from start to finish. So I go, you know what's a priority for me today is to get some good ideas into my head. And but then I've got, remember the second part is what else is important. I have other important things to do. So with this book, this one, I didn't even get past the introduction, and that was enough for today. On page 12 of the introduction, she talks about, the author, a concept called path dependency. That's an amazing one I've never heard before. And that was enough. That was my gold nugget for the day. I prioritized my day and my reading on my agenda in light of those other priorities that I have. So the last thing I want to be left you with, don't be driven by rules that are imaginary. Remember I say most people are zombies chasing mirages? That's one of the mirages. People are zombies. I must read the whole book start to finish. And it's a mirage that you even get a better benefit. I'd rather read 10 books and get their most amazing point into my head of 10 books than spend 2 weeks trying to force myself through one book. So get on your itinerary. Nobody knows your agenda as much as you do. You have many responsibilities. You must be a juggler. And that's the last point. You will have to juggle some things, and at the same time, you'll have to be focused. Don't juggle too many balls, but know that you will have to juggle some. There's a fine line between doing too many things and being too focused that you're forgetting on other important things. Sometimes when people try to get wealthy, they make it their one goal. That's all they do, but they sacrifice friends, family, health, and happiness. And I would say that's too extreme. But yet there's other people who do too much. They do their own shopping, they clean their own house, they like to fix their own car, they want to start their own business, yet they want to work at their own career. Yeah, they want to, go to movies whenever they want to eat junk food. Occasionally, like, it's too much. It's all over the place. The world is throwing things at them and they're just reactive. You can't be that person. You take life by the horns. You set a minimalistic amount of goals. I say pick 4, health, wealth, love, and happiness, and pick one thing in each. You want to lose 20 pounds in health. By the way, I'm launching this, by the time you hear this, maybe launched this health and fitness program with one or two of the top trainers here in Hollywood that train the celebrities and know all the tricks of the trade and cool stuff, highly trained people. So, weight loss. You want to lose 20 pounds? That's your one simple goal. Wealth, you want to get to level 2 at least, financial independence, or maybe you're there and you want to get to prosperity, or maybe you're there and you want to get to wealth. Simple goal there. I'm going to pick one business, go at that. Very focused, build tremendous amount of skill. When it comes to love, you're like, I'm going to build my Dunbar's number, 150 people, friends, family, and acquaintance, and romance, including acquaintances, that those are the people I double down on. I've got a group of 150 people that I go deeply with. Obviously, I have some as very best friends and some, more acquaintances. Then, families in there and romances in there. You've got to put in the time. And then lastly, you'll have this happiness. You can have to do some bigger picture stuff, a little bit of charity, a little of this, a little of that. Round yourself out. Become a little bit of a Renaissance person. Pick up a new language. Pick up the piano, something you've wanted to do. Go on a little travel, right? But notice that's 4. When I was saying all those things, just pick one in happiness, by the way. Just one goal. Like next month, you're going to learn, for the next 30 days, you're going to learn piano. Remember, you're not trying to become a concert pianist, just that one thing. And so now you have 4 main priorities. And again, those will need to be prioritized. You only have 4 things, one wealth thing, one health thing, one love thing, You got to prioritize those. And that is dependent on your life. If you're really poor right now, but you have a great family, you probably want to put wealth a little higher, right? You already got the family going well and the friends. Maybe you're really healthy, but you're broke. Or maybe you're really wealthy. I have a friend just became a billionaire. He sent me a little article on him. He's not even 40 years old. He's very overweight. I'm like, well, my friend, why don't you just make a little less money? You already have $1 billion now, and make sure you live long enough and don't have a heart attack. See, that's where I said you got to be flexible. They change, because once he gets really skinny and really healthy and maybe his money starts to go down, maybe he needs to flip there. Maybe he needs to spend more on love now. Continually cascading and re-putting in just simple common sense ways. Don't be buying donuts before you pick up a $250,000 check in your business. You can live without donuts. You can't live without business deals and revenue in business. Okay? So, 3 questions for you now. Number 1, what is an example recently of something you misweighted? Wasn't that important and you did it first? Okay? And what were the consequences of it? Number 2, what's your 4 simple areas, things in each of the pillars? Health, wealth, love, and happiness. What are they? Okay? And which should you do first? Number 3, how do you need to alter your day to do some of the harder things or the more challenging things first? What are you doing too late in the day that you should start doing at the beginning? Okay? Put that in a comment below the video here. Please also write it in your private journal. You can take a picture of your pen and paper and send it to me if you want it, Tai Lopez. But make sure at least doing it here. Read other people's. Leave some replies in the community. So many people. It's amazing how many people are in here, you know, seeing results. You will see huge results. Watch out by misweighting. I didn't, Dwight Eisenhower, General Eisenhower, read a book on him. Read about his abilities to manage. He's like a guy like Trucker. He did some simple things. It's not always the flashiest and the fanciest, but he was able to administer. And that's a great part, you know, why we were effective as a country back when he was a general and president. He's very good at that. And that's something that you and I must aspire to, is be able to administrate and move things around and prioritize. And always the first things first. You can get anything you want in life, but you can't get everything, not at once, okay? So thanks so much, and I will talk to you soon.